In this video, we will be talking about important concepts of second unit from Strength of Materials 2 under JNTU Hyderabad R18 syllabus in particular. Here we will be having a glance on all topics so that you will understand what is there in this chapter, and that will be helpful in your preparation. So let us get into that. So let us see the first part, columns and struts, and later we shall see the beam column, that is second part. So in columns and struts, so we have a terminology. First you have to understand what is a column. So let me recall, column is a structural member which is subjected to compressive stresses, and it is exactly 90 degrees vertical. And strut is also a member subjected to compressive stresses, but it is not vertical. Other than vertical members which are subjected to compressive stresses, those we are calling them as struts. That may be horizontal or inclined. Slenderness ratio, so it is actually denoted by K, and this is the L by radius of gyration, that is unsupported length to the radius of gyration ratio, buckling factor. So this is effective length or equivalent length. So L effective or L equivalent by minimum radius of gyration, that is a buckling factor. And we have to see what is equivalent length. That is very important concept. Let us see that in next slide. Buckling load. So buckling load is nothing but, so in one column is there, so if you apply some load, if it is a very long column, it will bend. For example, if you are a tall person, so you are carrying some weight on your head, and sometimes you may buckle, so you may bend. That is actually not bending, that is actually buckling. So because of these compressive stresses, that is being buckled. So for example, a member is there and subjected to load, which is transverse load, then it will bend. That is called as bending. And for the same member which is subjected to the loads, compressive loads, so then it may also buckle. So then it may also having deformation like this, which is known as buckling. This is buckling and this is bending. This is straight load which is causing bending. This is indirect load which is causing buckling. For the buckling I said. And safe load. So safe load is very simple. If you have buckling, Euler's load by factor of safety, or Rankine load by factor of safety, or simply let me say buckling load by P buckling by factor of safety. So buckling load is a load at which the column just buckles. So in order to avoid that, we have to impose the load on the column in such a way that with some factor of safety, so that the column will be very safe. So that we have to consider the safe load. That means, so for every column, according to its material and its cross section and all other details, it will be decided some factor of safety. So we have to uh, divide that in order to find out the safe load. P buckling load by factor of safety. And let us see what are the different types of columns. So we have here short columns, long columns, and medium columns. So short columns are generally their length less than 8 times the diameter. So the condition is diameter or cross sectional dimensions, or can I say, and slenderness ratio, that is K, should be less than 32. Then we can say those are short columns. So in order to find out the in order to identify the medium columns, we have another provision, that is length should be, the length should be less than 8 times the diameter, and length should be less than 30 times the diameter and greater than 80 times the diameter. So this is the condition. So that means the length should be in between 8 times the diameter to 30 times the diameter, and slenderness ratio should be in between 32 and 120. And for the long columns, it is very simple, that is length should be more than 30 times the diameter and slenderness ratio is greater than 120. So these are the conditions in order to say which is long, which is medium, and which is long. And one more thing I have to say, short columns, if the column is very short, it will be failed due to crushing only. It will not bend, it will not buckle. Medium columns, so these two loads are very considerable. So that is, those are compressive stresses will be acting over there, direct stresses will be acting, and buckling, sometimes it may buckle. So both stresses are acting here for medium column. So we have to consider the both buckling load as well as direct load. And short columns will fail only due to direct load. Compression, direct compression. Long columns will mostly fail due to buckling alone. So long columns will bend. That means they buckle and they will fail. So there is uh, probably no direct stress. So as per assumptions, we see strength of column. So generally what happens, if you see the slenderness ratio, that is unsupported length by radius of gyration. As the slenderness ratio increases, what happens? The length will increase. As the length increases, if you apply some load on the column, it will easily bend, easily buckle. Then it will fail. That means as the slenderness ratio increases, as length increases, slenderness ratio increases. As the length increases, slenderness ratio increases. As the slenderness ratio increases, the strength of the column decreases, right? Due to its buckling tendency. Equivalent length. This is what you have to understand very clearly. Uh, if you see simply it's supported beam, if you see a simply supported beam and having some load on it, so how it will bend, and it will have a bending moment diagram like this, and it will have 2 point of inflections. So you have to understand what are point of inflections and point of contraflexion in order to understand equivalent length. Equivalent length is generally the distance between 2 points of inflection. Distance between 2 points of is it is distance between 2 points of inflection. That means, for example, if you say it is having 2 points of inflection, that means point of inflection is nothing but this bending moment diagram where it is touching zero. That point is known as point of inflection. And for some types of beams, maybe overhanging, maybe continuous beams, maybe fixed beams, for all you can see different bending moments, right? So some bending moment will be like this. So it will be having point of inflections 1 2 3 4. So wherever it is touching zero, that is point of inflection. And point of contraflexure is nothing but the point which where the bending moment touches zero while it is traveling from negative to positive or positive to negative. Contraflexure, that is contradiction. You can simply uh, make it as a trick to remember contraflexure. There is a contradiction between positive and negative. So that is the point of contraflexion. So that is also known as point of inflection because it is touching zero. And if you see for the same case, for the simply supported beam, it is having 2 points of inflection, but there is no point of contraflexure here because the bending moment is not moving from negative to positive or positive to negative. It is just a positive bending moment and touching zero at both ends. That's it. So all the points of inflection cannot be points of contraflexion, but all point of contraflexures can be point of inflection too. So this is what you have to remember. And distance between two subsequent points of inflection are known as equivalent length. End conditions. So we have to consider 4 end conditions. So one is both ends hinged, a column which is having both ends fixed, so both ends hinged. Another one is one end is fixed, other end is free. And another one is one end is fixed, other end is hinged. And another one is both ends fixed. So these are the 4 conditions we have to consider. Also end conditions, equivalent length for this. So generally the bending profile will be like this, bending moment will be, and their equivalent length will be equal to the unsupported length of the column. And here if you see for cantilever beam, I mean one side, if one end is fixed, other end is hinged. So if you see the bending moment, so bending moment will be, let me draw it here, bending moment will be like this. So maximum bending moment occurs at the fixed end. So we have only one point where the bending moment is touching zero, that is at the free end. So if you want to get another point, what you have to do? So in order to get that, project the same other side, and that point will be reflected over here. And then what is the total length in order to find out 2 points of inflection gap? this is length, and one more length is added in order to uh, consider the point of inflection. So that will be now 2 times the length. So effective length for this type of uh, arrangement is 2 times the length. And here we will have bending profile like this, and bending moment will be in the same way opposite to that. And now the length, equivalent length will be L by root 2, unsupported length by root 2. And one more, this is both ends fixed, and here effective length will be L by 2. So these are the important end conditions you have to remember. This is Euler's theory for long columns. Next one, so we have to find out Euler's load. Some assumptions we have to consider, read them from the notes. So P Euler is equal to pi square EI by LE square. So I have given the derivation in the notes, please check them. And both ends hinged. So for this, effective length will be L as we discussed previously. Then what happens to P Euler's? Pi square EI by LE square. L square, that's it. And now one end is fixed, other end is free. So in such cases, effective length will be 2 times the length. Now P Euler will become pi square EI by, in the place of LE, I'll substitute 2L. 2L whole square, that will be pi square EI by 4L square. And now both ends are fixed. And in such cases, effective length will be L by 2. And now P Euler will become, Euler's load will become pi square EI by L by 2 whole square. So in the place of LE, I substitute L by 2. Now I'll get it as 4 times pi square EI by LE square. Sorry, L square. And one end is fixed, other end is free. So for that we have seen effective length will be L by root 2. And now if you substitute, P Euler will become pi square EI by, in the place of effective length I will substitute this L by root 2 whole square, and that is 2 pi square EI by LE square, L square. My writing is not very good here, please adjust. And let us go for another topic, next topic, that is sign conventions for bending moment. So here we have concavity and convexity. The beam may bend like this, or the beam may bend like this. Okay, now this kind of uh, okay, just a minute. It is very simple, and it is but opposite to your bending moment for the beams. So if you take this, so for this kind it will be negative. So this is concavity towards the column, that is negative, and this is convexity towards column, that is positive. This is negative bending moment, and this is positive bending moment. Euler's theory derivation for all end conditions. As I have told you, we have seen previously, these are all the end conditions. For all this you have to prepare for derivations, how to derive them all using these sign conventions and considering their bending moments. Limitations of Euler's theory. So Euler's theory is not only sufficient in order to find out the buckling load. So let us see what are the limitations. The main limitation of Euler's theory is its assumption. It says that the column should be exactly straight. There should not be any crookedness in the column. But it is not actually possible in reality. Every column will have more or less crookedness that cannot be seen with the naked eye. But it will the columns will be having some crookedness. So Euler's theory may not be applicable in practical. And one more thing, it will not consider any direct stress. The Eulers believe that all the long columns, so Euler's theory is only applicable for long columns, and these columns will fail due to buckling alone. It will not consider direct stress anymore. So that is the main drawback of Euler's theory. But every column, even it is long or short, it will be having some direct stress upon it. So Rankins now comes satisfying, gives satisfying formula for all suitable, for all columns, all types of columns. He will give suitable formula, that is, so he says that 1 by P Rankins, that will be equal to 1 by P direct plus 1 by rank, I mean, what is that, Euler's, 1 by P Euler. And accordingly he will decide the formula like P Rankine will be sigma C into A by 1 plus sigma C into 1 plus A into LE by K whole square. So sorry, this is A, small a. And here small a and sigma C are known as Rankine's constants. Rankine's constant, and those values will be given according to the material. So you just go through your notes and see that what I have given to you. Okay, and one more thing I have to mention here: P Rankines, when there is only long columns, the direct stress will not be zero, and there will be only acting buckling stress. So P Rankine will be equal to P Euler's. And if the column is very short, the length will decrease. So the Euler's formula will become zero, and there will be existing only P naught. And the column is medium. You have to consider both type of loads. So as this, the Rankine satisfies all the conditions, all the columns. So let us see now Rankine comparison of Rankine's and Euler's load. So these are some practical problems, numerical problems are there in order to compare these two formulae. So for the same type of loading, same conditions, same type of columns, what is the value if you get through Euler's formula, and what is the same if you use Rankine's formula, and you have to do the comparison of both. And one more thing, this is the column subjected to eccentric loading. So initially we have seen the column, all the columns are subjected to centric loading. Center columns are loads are subjected at the center, and this eccentric loading means that the column having the load which is eccentric to the axis. So column is having some axis, and load is not not exactly on the axis, but it is parallel and with some distance. That is known as eccentricity, away from the center. Right? In such cases, we have again a secant formula in order to derive. So that will be, so a simple formula is there. Derivation is also simple. You just see the notes: P by A plus P into E secant L by 2 under root P by EI by 2. So P by A is here direct stress, and this is the bending stress due to eccentric load. So that is actually stress, the maximum stress in the column when it is subjected to eccentric loading. So apart from that, we have some empirical formulae like Professor Perry's formula, Johnson's parabolic formula. So, both Rankine, these people believe that the Rankine's and Euler's formulae will not give correct results. Even they have considered a lot of assumptions. So these people will give some values, some standard parameters in order to find out the loads, in order to find out the loads and stresses. Right? These are purely empirical. That means, so due to lot of considering lot of experimental analysis, they have found these two formulae, and for this the standard values are obtained from the experimental results. So if you change Rankine's formula a little bit, you will get Professor Perry's formula, and that is sigma max minus by sigma d minus 1 into 1 minus sigma direct by sigma Euler is equal to 1.2 eccentricity and distance from the neutral axis with k square. So this is what Professor Perry's formula. Similarly, Johnson's parabolic formula is also there, and straight line formula is also there. I have not mentioned. You just see them and remember those formulae, so that you will get in short answers. Beam columns. So we have again two cases here. So one is strut pinned at both ends subjected to axial thrust P. So this is the strut. So strut may be horizontal, I said. So it is subjected to compressive load, that is P, axial thrust. Along the axis there is a thrust P and a transverse uniformly distributed load W per unit run. So here not only you are having a compressive load here, along with that you have a transverse load. So in such cases you have to derive what are the maximum and minimum stresses. So you have to consider the bending moments and you have to derive a formula for that. So it is easy if you see the concept. and strut pinned both and subjected to axial thrust P and a transverse point load acting at the center. These two cases we consider in beam columns. So beam columns are nothing but, so column is subjected to compressive stress, beam is subjected to transverse load. So if you consider both of them, so that will become beam columns. So you can see beam column joints for this. You can imagine in your high-rise buildings, you can see the joints of columns and beams. So you can consider them as beam columns, which are subjected to both axial thrust and transverse point load or uniformly distributed load. So that is all about second unit. If you see that all the concepts are simple, if you see, so don't by heart the formulas. If you see the concept, automatically the formulas will can be remembered. So thanks for watching. If you have any doubt, please let me know. Thank you.